At WellFed Photography, the word client is becoming a thing of the past. We are now happily welcoming members to enjoy having their family histories captured so that they can have gorgeous pieces of family art to look back on and treasure in this lifetime and by future generations. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a member, you can visit our website at wellfedphotography.com/membership or download our membership brochure in the link provided. Now, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Hi, everyone. This is Ariana from WellFed Photography, and I am joined by Kim Croshaw. And today we are going to talk about a few things that are very, very special. One is the book of breastfeeding stories, which Kim is featured in, and then another exciting topic after that. So first, Kim, I'm just going to have you tell our audience a bit about yourself. And yeah, if you just want to do that now.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Ariana. My automatic response, I suppose, to that question, that's something I've been working on lately, is I'm just a mum. But then I realized I'm actually not just a mum. Yeah, I have 6 children. The eldest is 18, all the way down to the youngest is 2. And I just recently qualified as a breastfeeding counsellor earlier on in the year. And that took 2 years. I'm also a baby wearing consultant and a volunteer with Baby Wearing Ireland, and I've been currently the sitting chair for almost 2 years with Baby Wearing Ireland. So yeah, I'm not just a mum.
Definitely not.
Yeah. No.
Well, I suppose if we're just going to jump in, because you've got a lot of things there that I think other people will identify with, being a mom, feeling like sometimes your answer is just a mom, having the breastfeeding and also the baby wearing, which is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. But I suppose my biggest question is about our book of breastfeeding stories. What was it that spoke to you? And for anyone who's not aware, we've been working on a book of breastfeeding stories since really the idea came to me the end of 2019, December 2019, and I've been working on it ever since. And so, Kim, I'd be interested to hear from you, like what drew you to wanting to share your story?
I suppose we met at Wear a Hug in 2019, and then I saw your pictures, and then you put out your call for the book of breastfeeding. I was like, yes. Like I was tandem feeding my then, oh gosh, how old she would have been 3, and then my almost 1-year-old. And I wanted to share the normal side of breastfeeding that people don't get to talk about. So I obviously filled in the forms and made contact with you. But I felt drawn to share these things that people hide. And there seems to be a sense of frowned upon with breastfeeding in many of the European cultures past a certain age. And there's a lot of women who feel they have to keep it to themselves. So I just felt that I was doing my breastfeeding training, counselor training, and yeah, I just wanted to reach out and bring my story to the table. I don't know how much I brought to the table, but yeah.
It was amazing. And Kim was a little bit different because I actually contacted her after our initial decision making for who would be a part of the book, and I didn't know actually how much was there with your story, and I'm not going to go into it because we'll save it for the book, but I was actually blown away by all that you did have to share, and we'll touch on a little bit of it towards the end, but I just continued to be amazed by people's stories and all that is within them. And so many people, like you said, they walk around and they think I'm just a mom, but actually their lives are so fantastic and the things that they have to share are so incredible. So I was blown away by your story, and we sat down for me to be able to do this. We were in lockdown, the very first lockdown. And so I was sitting down with people like this over Zoom, an hour and a half, 2 hours, hearing their story and asking them questions and learning more about them and what their experiences were with breastfeeding and motherhood and birth and pregnancy. And so I'm curious to know what it was like for you to actually sit and verbalize and tell your story to someone else that we kind of knew each other, but you didn't know me incredibly well. No. So I'm interested to hear what that was like for you.
I think we actually went over the 2 hours, didn't we, for my one?
I think so.
We went way over. It was actually I suppose I come into the interview with, this is what we're going to talk about, and then it kind of led on to different things and different aspects of my life and my breastfeeding journeys and pregnancies. And it's just, I felt it was amazing how you can start with one topic in mind and you can it leads to somewhere else. But it was definitely, I started off, I suppose, quite timid to start with, nervous talking about that, because not many people knew that I tandem fed. And then I was just like, do you know what? Who cares? Because that's who I am. That's how I parent my children. And that's nothing to be shameful about. So partway through, I was like, there was like a little switch in my mind that was like, let's just let loose and just go and talk freely and openly. And you're such an easy person to talk to as well. It made it a lot easier to just be able to tell my stories. Yeah.
Thank you. And we also did the photo session portion of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see what it was like for you to actually see your family and to see yourself breastfeeding and comforting and all the things that come with having a family and having those bonds. So what was it like for you to see that in photographic form?
It was amazing, because there's not many photos of me feeding, because I'm always the person taking the photos. And I think many mums are the same, that they're the ones who take the photos. So there's never many pictures of the mums with their kids. And definitely none of me breastfeeding, like 6 children, and I've got a handful of photos of me breastfeeding any of them. So that was kind of different, but like, I love the pictures that we have. It took a bit of getting used to having someone following us around for a few hours taking photos, but then we kind of just forgot that you were there, and your images were just amazing. You just sort of slid into the background, and the images that you captured, I know there was one in particular where my little girl fell over. Do you remember? And you were unsure whether to take the photos, and it's actually one of my favorite photos of just that raw moment of me being a mum comforting my child. And yeah, it's just one of my favorite ones. So yeah, I love the images, and it's such a nice thing to have that the kids can see as well as they're growing up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for saying that. And I remember actually that Dom had mentioned that that was one of his favorite photos as well, of you comforting your youngest. And I think sometimes partners get to see these things, but moms don't get to see them. And so it's really nice for mothers when they can actually see those moments and see what they're actually doing day in and day out.
Well, I remember the first thing I noticed about that photo was my double chin. And I was like, oh, no. And then I was like, no, it's a beautiful photo. But we're our own worst critics. No one else would have noticed that, but only me. And I got past that. I was like, no, it's a stunning photograph. And I just loved it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the honesty, because I actually wrote about that recently, about how we can be so critical because we've been taught to be critical of ourselves. We've been taught to look at the mirror and be critical. But it's nice whenever you can see the beauty in what you're seeing and kind of move beyond the criticisms and start embracing yourself and loving those moments. So thank you for that. Now, we've talked about the book of breastfeeding stories, but you also had your own idea for a book. So can you tell us a bit about that and what brought that to life?
Okay, so there's a lot of people close to me who have, and myself, to be honest, who have had difficult pregnancies, and they've experienced losses through pregnancies. And what I mean by that, I don't mean the tragic loss of a child. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But other parents and caregivers, even grandparents, I suppose, it can experience other losses. And these seem to be things that are brushed under the carpet. No one speaks about them. There seems to be this thing where in Ireland and the UK, obviously where I'm from, where everyone is surface happy about a pregnancy. Does that make sense? But if you pull back the layers, you can get judgments and criticisms and, oh, look at that one, oh, she's pregnant again, or that one, oh, she's 16. And but no one would say it to your face, but nobody knows the impacts of statements like that can have on the person who's pregnant. my own experience, I'm not going to go into too much because it's going to be in my book and I want to save it and share it when it comes with everyone else. But it kind of molded where I went as an adult. And there just seems to be so much shame. I was recently then speaking to a very close family member who opened up about their own experiences of their pregnancy and what happened to them. And I just sat there and I spoke to Dom afterwards. I said, I need to give these people their voices. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I just needed these people who have been hiding their feelings and their emotions and how it's impacted their lives for so long because they felt shame or they couldn't talk about what happened to them, because pregnancies are meant to be this beautiful thing. And for many it is, but for many it's not. And it's not even about having a baby at the end of it. There are other things that women and parents and people in general, I'm not going to just say women who have babies, because they're not just women have babies, and they get impacted. You can experience all sorts of losses from a pregnancy. You can be disowned, disinherited, you could lose your job, you could be impacted financially, you can have relationship breakdowns. There's this whole array of losses that people have to experience, but because they're pregnant, they're not allowed to talk about these. And it just hit me, and I welled up and I said to Dom, I have to do this for these people. And that's where I am. So it's the hidden stories of pregnancy. So yeah, the hidden losses of pregnancy is my book. So yeah.
And do you have participants at the moment, or are you looking to get participants for the book? Where are you
I
stand
am
with that?
looking to get participants, and I want people from all kinds of backgrounds. So I have a list sort of like wrote out that I am looking for. I am, sorry, 2 seconds. So I would be looking for like someone who immigrated to Ireland, someone who emigrated from Ireland. I'd like a male story, someone who was maybe experienced a teenage pregnancy, or an older person who had a pregnancy, someone from the people of colour society community, the LGBTQ plus community, the traveling community. There's a whole list. I want someone from each community to be able to share their story. I already know there are so many stories, but I just want to cover one from each category as best I can for now, and then we'll see where it goes.
What is something that you hope the readers will gain from reading these stories?
Understanding. I feel like the first thing when you tell someone you're pregnant is, oh, congratulations. But that person inside then is automatically put on the spot to go, oh, I know, thank you. Yet they might not be feeling that. You don't know what's happening in their lives, and you don't know how they feel about their pregnancy. So maybe a bit more change in perspective of how we approach that. When someone comes to you, in fact, and goes, oh, I'm pregnant, you go, well, how do you feel about this? Rather than, oh, congratulations, because then that's just burying more about how a person feels, because they feel like they can't speak still. I know when I was pregnant with my last, we had decided we were having no more children. We were stopping at number 5. And then I got pregnant with Freya. We were nearly 3 months gone before we found out. And the shock, horror. I remember I cried for weeks because we weren't having another baby. I had gone through the whole grieving process of not having another baby. And it was hard for me to come to, because I always wanted another one. And then we decided, no, we're done. And so I went through that process, and then bam, I am with this pregnancy that I didn't want, because we had already gone through that. And I was too scared to tell people. I was very lucky. I had some friends who knew how I felt, and they were like, do you need us to come to you? do you need us just to be with you? I was so touched by the fact that I had friends who understood, but then I had family who were like, oh, congratulations, this is a true blessing. But they didn't understand that I had gone through this whole process that I had to backtrack on. And yes, I love children and I love her dearly. I wouldn't change her for the world. But it was a process that I wasn't expecting. So I don't want people to go, oh, congratulations. I want people to have friends like I had and go, how do you feel? Do you need us to be your friend? Do you need to cry on us? Do you need to help with anything? I think when more stories are heard of how people really feel, I think there becomes more acceptance that, yes, a pregnancy can be a blessing, but it might also not be. And I think that's what I'm aiming for, is for people to realize these hidden stories and how it affects people as well, going on maybe years or their entire lives, because they don't feel like they can express themselves. I think society, ideally, I would like, and I hope I'm doing it with my children, is to be able to speak more freely about how they feel. I think most people can agree that we don't talk about how we feel enough. And that has a knock-on effect. And I just, yeah, that I'm going off now.
Oh, you're amazing. I could listen to you. I could just sit here and listen to you talk all day. I did have a question around it because, like you said, for you, it wasn't the celebration that some of the outside world expected it to be. And it had nothing to do with the fact of like your love for Freya or anything like that. Yeah. So I'm curious for mothers who have a story of loss to share, but that they're also afraid of sharing that because of what their children might think, or their fears around their children feeling unloved through sharing those stories of loss. What would you say to those individuals?
I'd say be honest with yourself. I don't think your children are going to feel unloved if you're honest. I will also say that in this book, you can be anonymous. You could, if you want to participate in my book and have your story heard, it can be anonymous. This is a safe place. There will be people who will be sharing stories that might not even be around the love for a child, but what happened to them during a pregnancy. And they might not want the public to know who they are or to piece things together. So that's one thing I'm very keen on, that this is a safe space. So if you don't want your child to hear these stories, then that's fine. But I think my own children, I've learned, my eldest turned 18 a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I don't feel old enough. And he comes to me when he has problems. It might take a while because I suppose I like to base how I parent him, and I'm very honest with him. Like, he knows full well that 5 of the babies that we had were surprise babies. There was only one planned, and he makes a joke out of it. But they also know that there were some difficulties along the way as well. And I think it makes them understand that life isn't all roses. There is a tough side to things as well. But I just say, be brave if you can, and if not, we'll find a way.
I feel like this is so closely related to a story that I saw you share recently, which was around people thinking that they're doing a great thing by always looking for the silver lining when they're sitting with someone who's going through a challenging time. So yeah. I would actually love to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay, so that goes back to my counseling training for breastfeeding. I would have been one of those people who'd always rush out to try and fix people. And then my counseling training, it took me on this journey of almost self-discovery as well. Like, oh my gosh, I do this. And people sometimes just, and even myself, if I have an issue, sometimes you just want to be heard. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need solutions. You just need to be present in that moment to allow yourself to feel those feelings. And that's why I shared that, because I felt everyone assumes that when you have an issue and you take it to someone, that you want fixing, you want help, you want advice. And I think you just need to be heard. You need to be validated that your feelings are your feelings, and you're allowed to have those feelings. There's nothing wrong with how someone is feeling. They just need to hold this place and allow that space to feel and process. And that's why I shared that, because I think it's just hit me. That was like, that's so true.
Yeah, it's very eye-opening. It's very powerful that so often, I mean, I come from a psychology and social work background, so I totally get this feeling of when you're in a helping role, trying to move people beyond whatever is their challenge. But yet I also have understood how so many people's real problem is never having the space to just sit with what they're feeling, to feel it. And that is actually their ability to let it go, is the feeling of it. Because if we don't feel our emotions, we just store them in our body, and they're going to have to be processed later, whether that's in the form of illness or bigger reactions to things later.
Sure,
it's all going to have to come out eventually. But like you said, if you can just have that space to just feel it, to allow it, to be with it, that's actually so much more helpful than someone trying to move you beyond it too soon.
I definitely agree. I think, like, especially when it's something that's happening now, and you can allow your space to deal with that now, rather than bottling up, going, I'm just going to move on, I'm not going to talk about this. And sometimes I feel like, if you're going to go to someone like a partner, I'm going to use Dom for an example here now. He was he's a fixer. He likes to fix people. And I had to say to him, even yesterday, I was like, I just need to be heard. I just need you to sit there and listen. Don't speak, just listen. That's all I need. And I think just people just want to help. And I feel like sometimes that when they want to help, it's actually helping bury that feeling. It's not dealing with it. It's like you said, it's going to just store up in our bodies, and somehow it's going to come out. And we don't know how that's going to come out. It could be any kind of way.
Well, I'm curious to know, we mentioned about your own children and your approach to parenting, and something that I asked everyone who participated in the book is what they would like to see change for the better as we move forward, years from now, what they would like to see change for the better with regards to breastfeeding. But I'm curious to know what you would like to see change for the better when it comes to maybe truthfully speaking our stories, or having a different approach to how we speak to people who are pregnant, or like, what would you like to see that is different for your children and their generations versus what you experienced?
I actually think we're in a very good, I think the generation below us are actually very good. I don't know whether what they've seen our generation trying to fix the problems from our generation before, but I've spoken to a lot of young teenagers and young adults, and they are so much more accepting of people now than we would have been grown up. For example, two of my children are in the LGBTQ community. As you know, one of them is trans. They came out to me at 13 years old. And some might go, oh, that's so young, and because they don't understand. But to me, the way I parented my child allowed them to come to me at such a young age and be honest with me and tell me, Mum, I need help. Because I remember that day so clearly. They come out to me, and then they come up to me and go, I need help. And if all of my other parenting has failed, that moment made up for it. And then Luke came out to me, who's 18 now, and I was just felt like, if that was me, could I have done that at such a young age because of the way that I was raised? And that was a generation thing. I just think I want other parents to be able for their children to come to them, to have open and honest relationships with their children. And I think it paves the way that, like, if you respect them to understand your life, then they will respect you to come to you as well when they need you. And so far it's worked anyway.
Well, that's one of the things that I was thinking about whenever we were talking about parents who are afraid to share their story for fear of the effects that it may have on their children. I actually could see where it would be quite the opposite, and in that being truthful and honest and allowing all ends of the spectrum to be
Yeah,
seen with the way that people have felt about things would actually invite younger generations to do the same, to feel comfortable in sharing what they're actually feeling, to be comfortable in being vulnerable and
yeah,
speaking their own truth as they are feeling and experiencing it, rather than having to present, like you said, the rose-colored glasses version of life, but not actually being truthful to what their experience is, if that's not their experience. So I actually think it could be a gift to them.
I actually do. I think it is a gift. Now, I know like some days you get frustrated with the parenting going, oh my God, is this working? But those moments when they come to you and they are open and honest and they're, like you said, vulnerable to their parents, then you know that what you're doing is working. And it's an amazing thing. Like, um, Dom recently had a very open communication with his family members. And that's given him, as well as a grown man at 47, a sense of peace because then his parents were honest with him about things. And he said to me, it's just given him a little more understanding and insight. So he grew up thinking one thing, and now at 47, now he knows it's something else. So that's just a classic story of how being open and honest with our children, having an open dialogue for them to have safe space to come works.
I love that, because especially children growing up, they're always going to attach meaning to their experiences. But like you said, if
Mm-hmm.
we're not open and honest, if we don't tell them what's actually going on, they may attach a meaning that is completely different to what, your experience truly is. So they're
Yeah,
having a misunderstanding about the whole thing.
yeah,
So I love that. And was there anything from Dom's side that you wanted to share, or?
I will. Like Dom, I'm going to do from his perspective now. Dom was the subject of the mother and baby homes, as if it were that era. His mother was sent away to have a baby because she was young and out of wedlock. So he's the product of that, which everyone in Ireland will know fully well. And he has said to me that up until recently, when he actually heard his mother's story, did he really understand? He said he spent his whole life, I've got some quotes from him, he spent his life searching for connection with anyone who would give it to him because he didn't know where he belonged. He was looking for acceptance, and that led him into lots of different places and even the wrong places, seeking acceptance from anyone who would give it to him because he said he just didn't feel like he fit anywhere. I'm trying to think, like, he has struggles because of that. He grew up his whole life not feeling accepted and not feeling like he fitted it in anywhere, that he struggles with anxiety and social acceptance. And these are the knock-on effects that, whereas if he was a child, he was told that his mother did love him and he knew where he was from and he knew his dad, and he didn't have to wait till his adult life to discover this. It may have had a bearing on his childhood. His childhood wasn't easy, and he said to me he knows that his foster family loved him, but he didn't feel like he fitted in. He felt different. He just didn't feel like he was accepted. And he just, that's all he craved growing up, was acceptance and love. And now he understands what happened and why he was fostered, and he understands the other side of things. He's accepted and he's growing from learning about the things. He was very closed off about not understanding how the mother and baby homes, how it affected people. But he's opened up to hearing about them and then realizing himself, I think, that I'm only presuming now, that it sat with him and he's opened up and he's growing by learning. So I think he's a prime example of how an honest relationship with your children can have benefits. You can see what happens to him growing up, how it's created his life struggles, because he didn't know where he come from. He was a product of a hidden pregnancy story, and the life he had was based around this. And now you can see he's coming out the other side. So he's like that, he's having to deal, like you were saying earlier, it has to come out sometime, but how it comes out is what's key as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, because you talk about his process and him coming out the other side. So for you, having experienced the things that you've experienced, which people will have to read more about in the book.
Yep.
What is your other, have you reached your other side moment? Are you going through your other side moment? Have you already gone through it? What's that been like for you?
I suppose I had always thought I had dealt with my other side moments. This goes all the way back to when I was 19, so 15 years ago now, my story starts, and I probably felt like I could run away, hence why I'm in Ireland. I thought I could leave my past behind, I could leave what I'd lost behind, and then without divulging too much, I kind of got hit by a bus recently this year, and it just swept the wind from out of me. It just hit me like a bus, that I hadn't dealt with this. I hadn't gone through what I thought I had. I was literally just running away from it. I had buried it. And that to me was dealing with it. Whereas now I'm working through it and I'm almost at the other side. I'm at peace with it. And I've taken steps and I've sought counselling to deal with this as well. And it's been a process and an eye-opener, and I feel stronger for dealing with my own story as well.
What is the legacy that you hope to leave behind through the work that you're doing, through sharing your story, or even through the parenting that you're doing with your children?
My legacy is, see, I was thinking about this. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I really want? And I want people to understand that it's okay to feel, just be in that moment. And I want people to understand that even in this day and age, even now, I've known people who've hidden pregnancies, and we're in the 21st century in 2021, and people are still hiding pregnancies and still sneaking off to countries to have abortions, who are still abandoning babies, who are still single parents, teenage pregnancies. These things are not going to change. But if we can highlight them more, I feel there will be less of this stigma around hiding. There'll be less shame. And that's what I want. I want people to be less shamed by society and to be proud of who they are and where they're from, no matter what has happened, because nobody knows what's happening in anybody's life. Like some of the stuff that's in my story, nobody knows about. Like only close family would know, and now it's going to be for everyone to see. And there's a kind of sense of relief about that. And I just hope, even for future generations, that they feel that freedom to be able to be in a moment, express themselves, not have shame or to conform to what they think society wants, just to be free. Like I find it baffling that people are still hiding pregnancies in this day and age. Where is the support for these people to come to people and go, this is what's happened, I need help? That's key. If someone can just reach out, and if I can just help one person, I would be amazing. I just feel amazing that I've just helped one person.
Well, I know you're going to help far more than that. So.
It's been optimistic.
No, you absolutely, I mean, you've touched my life just through sharing your, like the breastfeeding side of your story. And I know a bit about your story for the book as well. And it's touched my life, and it's a great reminder to own your story and to, like you said, there's so much shame attached to it, but actually we can release that. You know, it's okay to release any shameful parts that we've felt about our own story and our own lives, and just walk forward with a bit of pride. You know, I had someone say to me recently, pride isn't a bad thing. And it was the first time I'd ever heard that. And I was like, that's eye-opening, because it's actually okay to own your story. It's okay to walk with your head held high for whatever you've been through. And it invites other people to do the same. So I love that. I love what you
Definitely. And I know there's, in my own story, there was one part that I felt really shameful about, because I forced a decision on someone, and the shame that sat with me for years. And you've seen the story, so I'm guessing you probably know which part this is. But even though that other person doesn't hold that against me and they fully understand, I still felt shame. But I'm hoping that when people read my story, they'll understand why that happened and why I went that particular route. And I'm hoping what this book will bring is a lot of understanding, and where people can relate to the stories. But yeah,
Well, Kim, thank you so much for sharing that. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about the book, or if they want to just reach out and share their story?
Okay, so they can email me at kimberlyacroshaw@gmail.com if they have an interest, and they can reach out to me on Facebook. I'm kind of nice and easy to find, Kim Croshaw on Facebook, or on Instagram. I am Mogra Nurturing Beginnings on Instagram. I'm also have a link tree as well, which is Linktree Kim Croshaw. So people can just reach out there. And it can be any kind of story. It doesn't matter how small you think it is. If it's impacting you, then reach out. We want to hear it, and everybody has a story to tell.
Absolutely. Well, are there any last words you would like to share?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. It was such a pleasure to sit and listen to you talk. As I said, I could listen to you talk all day. So maybe when you're further on with the book, or maybe when the book gets close to being released, then we can have you back on the show, and you can talk to us about that and what the process has been like for you.
Definitely. I'm sure it's going to be a learning curve.
I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed the show. Please feel free to leave a comment or a review to let us know what you loved about this episode and others like it. And if you'd like to be featured on our show, or if you know of someone who would be an amazing guest, get in touch with us at info@wellfedphotography.com and mention Living a Life Well Fed in the subject line.